Hello, and welcome to episode 42 of Charlotte Mecklenburg History with Dan Morrill. Today is Sunday, January 31st, 2021, and I am Dan's daughter, Mary Dana, here with Dan through Zoom. Hey, Dad.
Hey, everybody. Hey, Mary Dana. It's so good to be here. I'm so glad to be still here.
Good to see you. Thanks, everybody. We took last week off. We hope a lot of you had a chance to go on the tour of North Mecklenburg.
Yeah, I had some people that actually went on it and commented to me. And I did want to say one thing that I mentioned last week that, or 2 weeks ago, that African Americans should take their children to the McCoy Slave Cemetery. Everybody ought to take their children to the McCoy.
Yes, that's what I had told you afterwards.
It's a very evocative place. And I just got an email from someone who is a direct descendant of the Kearns family who lived on a plantation right around the corner from the McCoys, and also has a direct lineage back to one of his grandmothers was a slave on Cedar Grove plantation. And, you know, it's so great that he cares so much about his family's lineage. And, you know, it's a real tough job when you get into trying to do the documentary research on enslaved people because the sources are pretty slim.
Yeah, that's true.
But what a great thing for him to do. And, you know, it goes back to that thing I told you before. Look, if you write off plantation history, you write off fundamentally African American history. I mean, I'm the vast majority of people who made those plantations work, made them productive, were enslaved people. So,
well, and I think it's important for us.
Get that email. That was great. You know,
it's important to document history.
So good, yeah.
And then we also, one of your former students, I had told you this, that he sent me a Facebook message, Andrew. And if you're listening, thank you for your message. That's so nice that you're enjoying the podcast. And we are so happy to have everybody join us. We have a good time doing it, and we hope we can provide some good information and for everybody else. So contact us anytime. You can message my dad. He's on Facebook, and you can also email him at danmorrill2@gmail.com. So exactly. I got your email address correct this time, right? I never can remember.
I know. I'm really amazed, Mary Dana. You're obviously just getting there more and more.
I'm doing better. So, okay. So this week, Dad said he's going to just give an update on Preserve Mecklenburg. So, okay, take it away there, Dad.
Well, indeed I am. And I tell you, know, I just kind of sort of start out with a basic thing I've said so many times before, that, you know, we're preserving artifacts. And in order to preserve these artifacts, one of the things, not the only thing, but one of the things that's really helpful to achieve that is to have a business savvy, real estate focused, private, nonprofit historic preservation group. And what I'm going to show you today is a further illustration of that. And some of these things I've mentioned before, but I think we need to be reminded. This house, this is a digital drawing of the Frank McNitch house. And it was most likely going to be destroyed. The owner had put it on the market. The owner ended up being incredibly cooperative. But the owner put it on the market. It's on Sharon Lane. And there was no protection against its demolition. So when I first asked the owner, well, what's going to be the decision about saving the house? His response was, and understandably so, he said that depends on the buyer. So the reality was that, and I tell you an interesting thing, this type of house, because it looks like a plantation house,
Mm.
some people are hesitant to want to live in a house like this because they're afraid that they might evoke some negative feelings.
Well,
So,
it can be insensitive, I guess.
well,
Maybe
it can be, but of course, the house was built in 1925. It's colonial revival, and of course, it's an artifact. We go back to that again. So we were able to work out a solution, and it's now definitely going to happen because the new buyers have bought the property. And again, you can see the plan, and there's the house right that there in the back, right? If I can get this thing right there.
Mm-hmm.
See it? There's the house, and of course, in order to get the necessary price for the property, we had to deal with infill, and we worked very cooperatively with the Charlotte Mecklenburg Historic Landmarks Commission, and they have essentially signed off on all this infill. It's going to be a very, very impressive project, and you're going to see the house, of course, up from the road. So it's going to be, you're going to see the vista from Sharon Lane. And again, not to try to be redundant, but we are, of course, we have a preservation easement on it. And that means now it can't be torn down. Now it's going to be there in perpetuity. So took a private nonprofit group to do it, I tell you right now. So what a great thing. I'm going to come back to this one, the Elizabeth Lawrence Garden, because it's pretty complicated and I need to go off this page and I might get messed up. And I don't want to come back to this page. So I'm going to skip that one, but I'll be back to it in just a minute. You know, one of the things that I'm going to show you another one in a minute also, one of the things that Preserve Mecklenburg wants to do is to be regional. It doesn't just want to do projects in Mecklenburg County. Now, if you live in Gaston, Lincoln, Catawba, Iredell, Cabarrus, Union, Anson, or Mecklenburg, and you have some historic resources that you're really concerned about, please, please, please come to us. Now, Iredell County was created in 1788. Was named for James Iredell. He didn't live there, but he was a North Carolina delegate to the Constitutional Convention that drafted the United States Constitution 1788 and 1789. So Iredell County is named for him. And the very southern part of Iredell County, the area, you know, you go past Davidson and you go into Iredell County. It still was very much that same kind of cotton growing plantation culture that you saw in Mecklenburg. Now, when you get up towards Statesville and when you get north of Statesville, the cotton goes away and you get into tobacco. It's a different kind of arrangement. And it's also settled by the very same people during the 18th century, beginning in the 1730s, two primary groups, Scots-Irish and Germans. That's essentially the vast majority of the original settlers of this part of North Carolina were. Now, this is the Brantley House, the R.E. Brantley House, which is in the Cottle Creek community of Iredell County. It's outside Mecklenburg, and we're so excited to have an opportunity to do a project. It's going to be tough. This is a very rustic federal-style farmhouse, two-story frame. Well, it's not frame, it's post and beam, but that's getting a little bit technical.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't
And
know what that.
we don't know exactly how we're going to be able to do a preservation strategy here. It's very much in the early stages, but we're working with the Morrisville, North Carolina Planning Department. A large nationwide apartment builder has bought the tract of land on which the house is located.
Mm-hmm.
But we hope that we'll be able to save it. But we're so happy that we're involved in it. And we hope we end up with the very same result here that we had with the McNinch House. So we're very excited to be working outside of Mecklenburg County. Now there's several projects that I've done many times before, but I want to go over them. The Knowlton Shaw House, which is on Mecklenburg Avenue, we've got a preservation easement on it too. It was definitely going to be torn down. It was scheduled for demolition. So we were able to, you were at, by the way, you might hear my wife.
Yeah, I hear my mom laughing in the
That's all right.
background.
She has a wonderful laugh. Laughter is wonderful. But anyway, the Knowlton Shaw House is under a preservation easement. Now, one of the greatest things, I showed you this Mays House on Moorhead Street, it was scheduled for demolition. A lot of the credit for the fact that this house was saved goes to the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Historic Landmarks Commission, and more specifically to its very capable director, Jack Thompson, who replaced me after I retired. And it's a magnificent house. It's going to be saved. It's going to be saved on site because it gets very technical, but Jack was able to bring a developer in from Cleveland, Ohio, who specializes in tax credits and very, very complicated. But the main thing is it's going to be preserved. So
yeah, that's really good.
We were very much involved too, because we really did develop a lot of the materials that were used to convince the buyer to buy the property. So it was a cooperative effort, but it was just a wonderful thing. We all know about the Patterson grocery store. And right now, what we're involved in there is we're working with the owner, and they are going to make some changes to the building, and they hope to be able to get it rezoned so they can get some sort of a commercial use that would be there for the Washington Heights neighborhood. But of course, that's a wonderful African-American site, and we're very pleased about that. Edgewood Farm, that rezoning should happen very soon. And that is also going to be another one of these projects where we're going to have an easement, just like we have on the Patterson grocery store. It's going to be an infill project, and this plantation house is going to be saved as well. And we continue to deal with the deer griffin. We're very much in touch with the owner of this house. In fact, I got a question from somebody in town. Said, do you know what that artwork is at the entrance to Independence Park? Well, I said, I bet that woman is thinking about that crazy griffin that's over there, at on Park Drive at the entrance there by the Rose Garden.
Right.
So I sent her a picture of it, and I said, if this is what you're talking about, and I know everything about it, and if it's not what you're talking about, sending me a picture. She wrote me back and said, well, bless Pete, it was. So I tell her everything. She thought I was brilliant. Of course, I wouldn't have known anything 6 months ago, but that was great. That was a great thing to do. And by the way, Independence Park is being listed in the National Register of Historic Places. And
great.
That's a great thing. Now,
we did a podcast on it.
We did. I'm going to talk a good bit about the Elizabeth Lawrence Garden.
Okay.
Now, I have said so many times before that you folks, please consider becoming a member and supporter of Preserve Mecklenburg, because I can tell you the situation here would have been very, very different if Preserve Mecklenburg had not been involved. Now, I could go on and on, which I don't have time to do, talking about the Elizabeth Lawrence Garden. And by the way, one of the great things about this, if you go on the website, wepreservemecklenburg.org, it goes to all these essays. So you can read about the McNinch House, and you can also read about the Elizabeth Lawrence Garden. But here's, and I'll read it because I think it's sort of, Preserve Mecklenburg will be seeking a buyer for the lot and house that adjoin the Elizabeth Lawrence House and Garden on Ridgewood Avenue in Myers Park. The owners have fully cooperated in conveying an exclusive assignable option to PMI for the purchase of the property. In other words, we have an exclusive assignable option to buy the property next door. PMI will market the property subject to a preservation easement that will control the height and dimensions of a new house. The goal is to make sure that the new house will be compatible with the Elizabeth Lawrence Garden next door. Now, let me show you the house that's
Oh,
next
that's
door.
great.
Now, here is, to the left, here is the Elizabeth Lawrence mother bought these two lots in 1949 because she wanted to sort of consolidate her family. Elizabeth Lawrence lived in this house on the left over here. This lot, which the mother also bought, she gave that to her other daughter, whose name was Ann, and her last name was Way, W-A-Y. And you can see, of course, look, here's the reality. You know, many people talk about the Historic Landmarks Commission. It's a very worthwhile, important agency, and it does wonderful work. But there's no way that little brick house can qualify as an historic landmark. It can't, because the law says it has to have special significance. Well, you know, there's nothing architecturally significant about that house that's going to justify it being a historic landmark. Also, it's not an historic district, and there's no movement to make this neighborhood an historic district. So neither the Historic District Commission or the Historic Landmarks Commission can get an easement on this house or can get an option to buy this house. Now, we have an exclusive option to buy that property. Now, clearly, our desire is to want to sell it. And as I say, because here's, and I mentioned this before, I think, but it's worth, the thing that the Elizabeth Lawrence people were so concerned about was it, with what's going on in that neighborhood, there's no doubt about the fact that whoever pays the price for this property, they're going to tear this house down. I mean, they're not going to keep that house because they're going to want to have a larger home. Now, the fear was they're going to have a real big house up here. Tear this house down, build a big house, which would, of course, affect the sun, the wind, the water, the drainage of the garden. And these people were panicked over here about what might happen. Now, the property is owned by the niece and nephew of Elizabeth Lawrence. And they have been wonderful partners in this because they didn't have to grant us an exclusive assignable option to purchase this property. So they are real heroes in this because understandably, they want to get a fair market price for this property. And I'm not going to get into what the price is. We're going to be marketing it soon. But I can tell you this, it's not inexpensive because this is a very, very desirable neighborhood. Now, I'm going to try to change something here. I hope I don't get in trouble. I'm okay.
Okay.
Now, wait a minute. I got to go to Elizabeth Lawrence. All right, now, here is the survey of the property that we're talking about, okay? Down here at the bottom is Ridgewood Avenue. See Ridgewood Avenue? And you can see there's the house, which takes up virtually the entire lot. So and of course, you know, it's really funny about people's attitudes about houses. You know, we think of the we think of the front door of a house being a mouth, like a
Okay.
mouth on your face.
Yeah.
And people just naturally think you turn the front of the house toward the street. I mean, that's just what
Mm-hmm.
most people think. You just turn it up. Well, if they build a big house right up there on the street, I mean, face the street, you can see how close it's going to come to the Elizabeth Lawrence Garden, which is right over here. There's
Mm-hmm.
the owned by the Winghaven Foundation. So what do you do? Okay, we buy the property. Let me show you down here. Wait a minute, I gotta go back. Gotta go back. Ooh, I'm always nervous. Hey!
I know you're making all these weird
No, I know it.
sound
Now look,
effects.
look. Here's what we're gonna do. You see, here's the street down here, right? Now, whatever house is built there, we are concerned primarily about the height and the width and the placement of the house. So what we will do is we will require the new owner who buys it. They're not going to face the street. The house is going to face the garden. And then, of course, there will also be a garage here in the back, and there'll be a driveway up the side that will go back to this garage. Okay.
Okay.
So we are doing all of that, doing all of this in order to make this house respect the garden. Now, in terms of marketing it, what we're going to try to do is say, look, and we had an architect who's on our board, a wonderful man named Stephen Pinckney. He actually drew a Charleston type house with big verandas across the front. So you would come out and you would actually look at the garden.
Yeah.
So the garden will be an asset to the house. And some people think, well, I mean, that's what we're able to do. We're able to do that. Remember, we have an option to purchase it. Therefore, we choose who buys it.
Mm-hmm.
The owner gets their asking price. We're not asking them to make a financial sacrifice. And just to underscore the fact again, we are able to do it, to have an opportunity to buy this property, which is neither in a local historic district, nor is it a historic landmark, because we're a private nonprofit group. So those of you who care about this, who care about what we're doing, the Elizabeth Lawrence Garden is an extraordinarily important.
We did a podcast on it.
Absolutely.
A whole podcast. And it was
and
our
we had
most
a
popular.
Tremendous response. Yeah. We had all these people who were saying, well, if you need to become a supporter of Preserve Mecklenburg, because we are able to do this. That's the difference it makes. How am I doing time-wise?
Oh, good. You're like 24 minutes. So you're doing good.
Okay.
And that's a great idea to turn the house sideways. You're right. That's
exactly.
a great idea.
That's what allows it, if you will, to have the opportunity to be, something entirely different.
And then you look at the garden, like you said, that's an asset. So that's neat.
Right.
Okay.
Mary Dana, have you ever been to Polkton, North Carolina?
Maybe.
You have.
If I have, I don't remember.
You have.
Where is it? What's it near?
7 miles west of Wadesboro on US 74.
Oh, yes, I have been to Polkton.
Yes, you do. That's right. You didn't know it, but you've been to Polkton.
No, right. On the way to the beach, I guess.
This is really an interesting possibility. We have not yet decided definitely that we're going to do this project, but we are giving it serious consideration. You know what that marker is there? You ever seen a marker like that?
Well, yeah, that's a historic marker.
Put up by whom?
It looks like a federal one to, or
State of North
state
Carolina.
historic
State
marker.
of
Yeah,
North Carolina.
state.
Now, they don't just put state markers in front of every
Just
place.
anywhere. Yeah, that's right.
They go through a very rigorous administrative process and are vetted by historians, and they make issues about it. Now, this is the birthplace home of Leonidas Lafayette Polk. Now, Polk, by the way, all these Polks are related. People always ask me, is he related to James K. Polk? I'm sure the Polks. Polks came out of Pennsylvania. He's another one of these Scots-Irish characters. And to say the least, he was an only child. His mother died when he was almost an infant. He was very, very young. His daddy died when he was 14 years old. Now, Leonidas Polk, let's read this. First of all, President of the National Farmers Alliance, 1889 to 1892. And the National Farmers Alliance was a big deal in the late 19th century. My Alexa's talking to me. Founded the Progressive Farmer. Your mother, when she was a teenager, she took the Progressive Farmer. Now, the Progressive Farmer, she said it had dress patterns that you could get out of it. That told you how to make cookies and decorate them. And it's very pragmatic, practical kind of thing. In fact, your mother told me that she probably majored in home economics because of the Progressive Farmer. Very practical. He founded the Progressive Farmer. He's the one that started the Progressive Farmer. He was a champion of the little people. He was a champion of the little people. You know, that was the Gilded Age in the 1880s and 1890s when, the J.P. Morgans and the Vanderbilts and the Rockefellers, and more locally, the R.J. Reynolds and the B.D. Dukes and Benjamin Dukes, and all these people were making all this money. And Leonidas Polk was interested in trying to help the little guy. And interestingly enough, for his time, he was a very, very progressive person on the issue of race. In fact, he advocated expanding and making it easier for African Americans to vote. So he was a very progressive-minded person, to say the least. Eloquent speaker. That he could talk for. I read an article, and in 1887, he gave the commencement address at the high school in Huntersville. Spoke for an hour and a half, and he said everybody listened to him. He was really he was a neat dresser, very handsome man. Well, he was born in this house, and they put a marker up in front of it. Also, look at this. Founder of North Carolina State, a founder of North Carolina State. You don't know, the most famous person politically that has your name was a senator of the United States called Justin Morrill. He was a senator from Vermont. And in 1862, the Senate, during the Civil War, passed the Land Grant College Act, which meant that the federal government would make money available to states to establish land grant colleges that would teach agriculture and technology. They usually called them A&Ts. And he was a founder, about it doesn't mention it here. He was not only a founder of NC State, but also of North Carolina A&T, which was established at the same time for African Americans in the 1880s. So he's a big name. They were going to give all this money to Chapel Hill. He said, no, we don't want to have a school just like that in Chapel Hill. They read too many philosophy books over there. We want to have a school in Raleigh, the state capital. Also, he had 6 children, 5 daughters and a son. His son died before he died as a child, but his daughters all survived. And he became a major force. He was a Baptist. He became a major figure for getting the Baptists to establish Meredith College. Now, you went to Meredith.
I did. I
Your mama
graduated
went
from
to Meredith.
Meredith.
Your
Yes,
mama went to Meredith.
that's true.
And I'll show you. He was a very handsome. There he is. I mean,
Oh, he
look at
was
that
handsome.
beard,
Nice
boy. I mean,
beard.
the beard, male facial hair is so interesting. He died at 55, but he did. He was a very uh, impressive person. People always talked about how eloquent he was. Okay. Now, by the way, you can click on here and you can learn about the historic marker. You can actually look at the marker explanation. It's got a good history of it there of Brother Polk, and I just might have messed up. No, I'm back. I'll get there. Hold on. Hold on. I'm gonna get there. Where are you? Lives in Florence Garden. Where is the? Wait a minute. Well, where's the? There it is. Okay. Now, I'm still not getting it right. Still not getting it right, but I will. Just hold on. I'll get there because I
We're
want to
having
go back to
technical
that page.
difficulties.
But here again, this is in Anson County. In
Right.
fact,
Not Mecklenburg County.
well, it's another example of how we're trying to get outside of Mecklenburg County.
Mhm.
So and we haven't decided definitely. Now I'm going to go back to the page now. I know I'm going to go back to the page.
Okay,
Now,
good. You made it.
there's the Progressive Farmer magazine that
Mhm.
he established. Your mother actually had me look today at some back issues. Now, one of the big buildings at NC State's Polk Hall, named for Leonidas Lafayette Polk, born in Polkton. Well, he actually was born on a farm. When the railroad came through the area in the 1870s, he was a very enterprising guy. He laid out the lots and he established the town. And the town, of course, is named for him. Now you know what that's a picture of.
Meredith College.
Meredith
Sure.
College. Absolutely. Now, in 1890, he eventually moved to Raleigh. He became a very, very successful man in his own right. He established and that's on Blunt Street in Raleigh, and it's owned by the state, and they'll actually give you tours of it, which was his home. And he's buried in Oakwood Cemetery, and there's his grave marker in Oakwood Cemetery. Now look what it says: "Welcome to Polkton, birthplace of L.L. Polk." Okay. Now here's the issue. This is an old picture of the house. And by the way, how am I doing time-wise?
33 minutes.
Oh,
34.
I got time. Now, Mary Dana, we use basically three things to govern whether or not we should get involved with the project. One is it's historically significant. Well, I think you would agree that the birthplace home of Leonidas Lafayette Polk, who was not just an Anson County figure, but a North Carolina figure, and eventually through the farm movement and the People's Party, he became a national figure.
Mm.
So Leonidas Lafayette Polk, the community college campus of South Piedmont Community College, which is in Polkton, is named the L.L. Polk campus I mean, he's a big name, big
Yeah,
name.
well, he sounds like an
Now,
important guy.
so he's important. So it's an important place. Okay.
Mhm.
Secondly, is it endangered? Well, it's definitely endangered. I'm on. By the way, there's a marked similarity between this house and the one I showed you earlier, the Brantley house in Iredell
Oh,
County.
mhm.
They're both that sort of rustic, and this was built about 1830. And it's just a good artifact of its day. Good, typical, sort of upper middle class, not like Cedar Grove,
Mhm.
not like those Davidsons, but it's a substantial home. Now the second thing is it endangered. Well, ain't any doubt about that. It is definitely endangered. Now you can see, you can
Oh,
get the house plus plus 5.8 acres for $39,000. Now, a lot of people see, if you don't know the history, if you don't know who Leonidas Polk, it looks like a dump. You know,
yeah, it looks
it's
pretty run down.
it definitely is run down. There's no doubt about it. Now, here is a picture from above.
Oh, yeah.
See the road
It
here.
needs some work.
It needs work. There's
Yeah,
no doubt about it.
needs
There's
some
no doubt
love.
about it. And and that brings up, now here's the house here.
Mhm.
You can see the land. See this line going back up here,
Mhm.
here, here. US 74. That's US 74 down there. So you're going to get the house and the acreage. And here you see, here again, this is looking from US 74 up toward the land. You can see it there. And then also you see it here as well. Okay.
Okay.
Now, the issue is economic viability. In other words, it's definitely endangered. It's definitely historically important. Can you find an economically viable way to make it worth saving? Now, it is dry and it's got good bones. You jump up and down on the floor and it doesn't bounce on you. But, you know, the issue is, should we try to do something with this particular house? And, well, let me ask you, what would you do? Well, what would you, if you were on a board of directors, $39,000, I imagine to get this house in really good shape, probably going to cost you $250,000. I even in Anson County, I don't mean to put down Anson County, but I think it's going to
Yeah.
cost you $250,000. It's zoned commercial, by the way.
Mm.
It doesn't have to be a home. It could be an office. It could be a store. It could be, you know, the centerpiece of a farmer's market. You know, you could do all kinds of stuff you want to do with it. It's got water and sewer. You got to pay a tap fee, but it's got city water. It's got city sewer. You know, what would you do?
Me
Yeah.
personally,
Yes.
I would
Yeah.
save it. I think it's worth saving it.
Well, I'll tell you what we're thinking about doing. And again, we go ahead and buy it. Then we're in control.
Mhm.
We think what we'd probably do is, first of all, just mothball it. Don't go in there and start spending tons of money. And then we try to find a buyer that will come in, accept a preservation easement. And we would sell it to them maybe with 1 acre of land. Let's say, for example, you go back up here, you know, we could sort of do something like this, you know,
Mhm.
sell him acre of land, him, her, it, they, whoever. And then we still got all this land, which is zoned commercial. And this adjoining land is also up for sale, which could be developed. And then we could recover our money off the land back here. Now, the other thing is to try to get the people of Anson County to buy into it. But I'm really excited about it. I mean, I'm really excited about
Yeah, I can tell.
the challenge, and
I hope it works out.
and I'm really excited about the fact that we're getting outside of Mecklenburg County, because Mecklenburg's great, wonderful things, but you know, the historic built environment of Southern Piedmont needs help. And
Yeah,
I'd
it's
love to work on
regional.
this. That's right.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah, and
I
like
think
my
that's a
dad
good- you-
said, email him if you have some properties that you think are worthy.
Absolutely.
saving.
And you know, I go back to, you know, the fact that
Your mission statement.
yeah, you know, we got in there that we'll do, you know, multiple counties. And I go back to the fact, look, folks, come on, $25
A year.
a year. PreserveMech.org/donate. I mean, come on, folks. I mean, come on. You can, in fact, you can go on We Preserve Mecklenburg. You can click right there and you can donate right there. Come on, people. $25. Elizabeth Lawrence Garden, McNitch House, this house. Anyway, I've said my piece.
Well, I think it's great, all the work that you guys have been doing. It's really impressive, and I hope it will continue. So, all right, Dad. Well, thanks for all that information.
Well,
It's
thank
great.
you. I enjoyed talking about it. It was fun.
And thanks again, everybody, for joining us today. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.
Great. Bye.